This is a 2001 Pontiac Sunfire. Has a problem with the transmission staying in second gear, setting codes for shift solenoids, and it has a leaking radiator, crack in the radiator, and some wiring where the computer is located at over on the passenger inner fender needs taken care of. It has a 2.2 Chevy motor in it. First thing I want to do is take this plastic cover off. It has a push pin, get a better look at the radiator, and I want to drain the antifreeze out of it. The drain is a 1/4 inch square facing front on the driver's side of the radiator. That's it there. Feel free to open it and drain the antifreeze. Put a catch pan under it. Drain the antifreeze at any time. Sometimes it's best to catch that with a pair of channel locks and kind of pull on it while you're twisting it. I've got the car raised up on the passenger side to help steer the antifreeze out the driver's side, so I can just catch it all in one spot instead of running all the way across it. I took the pressure cap off of it. There's the crack in the radiator. Shooting the antifreeze out past the headlight onto the ground when it gets the pressure on it. So it's going to get a new radiator. Unhook the negative battery cable and let this car set several minutes. 10 minutes wouldn't be bad. I'm going to be taking these 10mm out of this plate. Got the hood latch on it, and it has the airbag deployment sensor on it. So let the airbag module rest a little while and discharge before fooling with this plate. And I'm going to take the 13mm out of the brace legs down on the radiator support. Once you get your plate up where you can get a good look at the airbag sensor out here, go ahead and push down on the orange positive connector and then release the plug into the airbag sensor. And just push the connector out the bottom with plastic and walk it up a little bit, prop it up or whatever you want to do to get it out of the way. Fasten it up to the hood or lay it on back. That's nice. I believe the factory put this start relay on this. Remove it out from the way of the fan, and any ground wire attached to it and anything over the top of the fan. Okay, I've lifted this rubber piece that's protecting the top of the radiator off of there. There's kind of the top of the fan mount. I'm going to take the 2 bolts, they're 10mm, out of the condenser, if yours has air conditioning on it. And then the fan Has one bolt on it. Down on the bottom middle of the radiator. Okay, the condenser's loose. And it's just sitting in its bracket, not being moved up out of there just yet. The fan bolt's removed. Now I'm going to take these radiator mount 10mm loose, radiator hold downs, and remove them and get them out of the way. The fan will have to be lifted up out of this lock right beside the battery, and that makes it loose to navigate. You can unplug it if you want. Now that the radiator is loose, there's a bleed line that goes from the pressure tank to the top passenger side corner of the radiator. While the radiator is low, just try not to pull the radiator too far out, because it's tugging on the liquid line on the air conditioner back to the firewall. You don't want to rupture it. And work on the transmission line over here. If you've got an automatic, you can work on the transmission line now. The upper one. The fan's just laying in there until you get the radiator out of the way. Have to unhook it off the top of the radiator and just pushed it back. It's taking the transmission line is loose, and there's a nice surprise down there on the bottom line. It's pretty rotten, so probably have to place it all, cut the line off. The transmission line flare nuts are 5/8. Cut the line off. And that'll set a drain pan underneath of this corner of the radiator, because the transmission fluid is going to weep out of this when you get this lower line loose or cut off or whatever you got to do. We got the lower hose clamp opened up. Set a drain pan underneath of this side, because some antifreeze is going to come out. I've lifted the condenser up off the radiator. You kind of have to open the air conditioner line up just a little bit to get a little movement, and pull back on the condenser. Just do it slow, because you're straightening this liquid line out from the firewall to here, just to get a little room in there to work. I'm going to go ahead and remove this passenger side headlight assembly by taking these two 13mm out. Give me some room to get the radiator out and get the new one in without worrying about breaking this nipple for the air bleed off. I'm going to go ahead and take the driver's side headlight out too. Took some doing to get that lower radiator hose off of there, but it should be free and clear to navigate now. Like that. And clean any trash up laying down there. It might hit the radiator. And look for your radiator mounts. Make sure they come off the radiator. That's nice. Strip the air deflector off the bottom of the radiator. This lip points forward. Clean up any spilled antifreeze or transmission fluid. I'm going to stick this melt back in the passenger side. Take note of the original clip locations. There's going to be one on the bottom of each side for the condenser, and then one for the fan here. So it's, you'll have to, looks like the new radiators come with a bunch of holes through here, so you have to measure the distance from this pin to this clip location, and compare your replacement radiator to the original, both at the pin points and the hookups, air bleed line, and that it's got automatic transmission hookups. Most do. So that clip goes in one of these holes here to measure from the pin over. Probably that one, I don't know. This one already has clips in the condenser area. And it came with a bag of clips and the hose clamps. And plugs, in case you don't have the air bleed nipple option. Brand new lines arrived for the transmission cooler. Ease the new radiator down in there. Make sure it's sitting fully seated in the mounts on the bottom. Let's see them into the front grill opening. Slip the lower radiator hose on. Kind of have to keep it out of the way while you're letting it down into this mount on this side. I just went ahead and took the separator hose off. It was smashed in this mess here. A bunch of wires from a transmission change. Gotta watch for stuff like that. And something else I noticed in that mess is that the throttle cable is routed underneath of the park neutral safety switch wire harness, instead of running through this latch on the air cleaner. I'm going to unplug that and get that back up on top of the air cleaner instead of it going down in there. The reinstall is just basically reversing what you did and checking for clearances all around the radiator and make sure it's not touching anywhere, like the lines, not hitting anything, and they're not pinched off down there at the bottom. And putting your hoses back on and filling it full of antifreeze. Fan back on, plugged in, and the fan's locked back in and bolted. I think some of them got an extra bolt here, some don't. And putting your rubber strips to keep debris out between the radiators back in place. One on the top and one on the bottom. And putting the headlights back in it. Found a busted line here. Put that back together with a piece of vacuum line. I think that's a windshield washer fluid thing. The only thing I'd watch out for is when you put the condenser bolts, holds it to the radiator tanks. Make sure there's only about 3/8 of an inch of the thread sticking out. If it's much longer than that, then put a shim under a washer or whatever, because there's only a specific distance between the surface of that stand and where the bolt was going through the radiator tank. So be sure and put the bolts that come out of there back through it, or you're going to have a problem. I got the throttle cable routed where it's supposed to go. Generally, the radiator hose isn't pinched off anymore. Even though I think the smaller harness probably went around the hose, so I'm not going to worry about it. As long as it didn't get pinched off like it was. Still see it pinched a little bit. And pour your antifreeze in it. And then pressure test it if you got the stuff to do it. I had just a little bit of a leak on this corner hose and resettled the clamp, took care of it. This piece here was laying off and I had to put a screw in it, kind of a back support for the headlight, I think. Screw was missing out of it. Plug your airbag sensor back in. Hook your battery up. Test it for overheating. Turn the heater on high and make sure you're getting heat out of it within the first minute and a half or two. If you're not, this has air bleed on it for the heater core underneath the coil pack there. And you can send it home then. I'm going to look at some loose wirings around the fan relay. See why the fan was hot wired